How climate change impacts the lives of children. I remember how much I enjoyed my childhood with my siblings and my friends in Sri Lanka. We sat under trees, strolled through parks, and had fun in nature. I breathed freely. I swam in waterfalls. I walked to school with my friends. I spent most of my childhood outside. Whereas now, my children grew up playing with plastic dolls and cars in the big city. Unfortunately, my children missed out on creating social connections and doing physical activities outside. Luckily, 17-year-old Greta Thunberg has inspired me, along with many others, to have a voice to fighting against climate crisis in this world. After speaking to my grandparents, I learned more about the history behind climate change. I now know that Sri Lanka is divided into two zones, the dry zone and the wet zone. We used to know the exact date when it will rain or the sun will shine. Since it is an agricultural country, our ancestors were used to living life filled with good health and meaningful connections to the land. Eventually, the growing and cultivation of food crops changed because British people invaded Sri Lanka. Tea cultivation upcountry by clearing out valuable forests and jungles became the dominant crop. It caused drastic climate change in the environment, resulting in unexpected droughts, floods, famines, etc. Because of this, it created poor living conditions since most people lost their jobs. Many adults were forced to become immigrant workers in other countries in order to make money to provide for their families. This resulted in a lot of social issues. Children missed their parents, young girls were increasingly more vulnerable to rape as their family unit was not there to protect them, and lastly, children lost their right to an education. What began with colonization led to climate change that created adversity for many social groups. Disadvantages arose related to gender, ethnicity, religion, age, public health, education, housing, socioeconomic status, etc. All these inequalities changed the future for children, eventually impacting the whole country, both short and long term. Colonization and the Industrial Revolution radically changed the world, and this still continues today when our most prominent economic model is one that encourages the mass production of goods using cheap materials and labor. The use of fossil fuels in the production of these goods caused enormous damage to the ozone layer and expansion of the ocean water and melting glaciers. Because every year the sea level rises over 3 millimeters because of the thermal expansion of the ocean water and melting glaciers. Because of this, many natural hazards are occurring, such as floods, hurricanes, storms, droughts, wildfires, extreme temperatures, glacier ice melting, and the reduction of snow from all over the world. The influences of these natural hazards creates inequality in many ways. For example, the victims of these tragedies tend to be those who are already marginalized. The wealthier people among the victims of environmental disasters have insurance to overcome the damage. However, disadvantaged people continue to suffer. In most countries, the adverse effects of climate change increases the issues among women and children more so than men, thus creating even greater gender and age inequalities within society. Today, many children in majority world contexts live in high drought or high flood occurrence zones. This creates many health issues because of the use of contaminated water and the depletion of food since crops have been destroyed. This climate crisis poses a universal threat by increasing inequity throughout the world. While people in majority world contexts are suffering because of the climate crisis, some are not directly impacted by it. These people are privileged enough to work in good conditions and even plan for more mass production. COVID-19 pandemic is a catastrophic event so big and disruptive that it can be measured in the planetary metrics of climate change. During quarantine, roads and transportation hubs are not being utilized as much as they used to be. Coal and oil industrial events have dropped. Carbon dioxide emissions have also decreased. Satellites have found decreases in one air pollutant, but that doesn't mean that the air is free of all pollution. Climate crisis has anthropogenic factors because its consequences are unpredictable, vicious, and permanent. We must stop using fossil fuels and we must begin innovating to create other forms of technology if we are going to resolve the mass destruction of the earth. We must all do our part, no matter how big or small. As inhabitants of this world, we need to be unified to overcome this global issue. This needs to be our number one priority if we are going to save the planet for those who are yet to be born. Thanks for watching!